Hello, everyone. Welcome. I am here with Shay Michelle today for our first interview of Wanderlust Live 2024. I am very excited for this series because I love doing these. We get to know artists, we get to understand their process and their journey. And first today is Shay Michelle. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited.
So Shay Michelle is obviously a Wanderlust 24 teacher with a wonderful lesson about which we're going to talk a little bit later to get you excited about it. First of all, Shay, tell us a little bit about yourself, please.
So I am a mixed media artist. I'm married and have 3 kids. I live in Tampa, Florida, in the United States. I've been creative my whole life, mostly. There was a little time where I set actual art aside, and when my kids were little, and I gardened and I canned and I cooked, and that was my creative outlet. And then I discovered online, art journaling mixed media classes, I don't know, maybe 8 years ago, something like that, and was totally hooked. And here I am today.
So how old were your kids then when you started getting back to your, art practice?
I would say my youngest was probably in she was probably like 9 or 10.
Okay, yeah.
Yep. And then I had a middle schooler and a high schooler.
Right, so there started to be some space for you.
Exactly. Some space in my head and some physical space that I could lay some stuff out on a table, without little fingers. And yeah.
Well, it's interesting how we look for different creative outlets when we can't really focus on something more, artistic. So
It's
you said
true.
what was it for you?
Cooking. Yeah, I was a very passionate home cook. I cooked all different kind of recipes, and it was a good thing because we all needed to eat. So it worked out really, really well. Yeah.
Right. So you've been through your artistic journey, you say 8 years, but probably it's more than that, right? Because you've been creative since I can only imagine you remember, because you have a um very artistic approach, and your personality seems to me really
Yeah, that's true. I remember I always say, sitting cross-legged next to my bed with my markers and my watercolors, and I would doodle and draw, and I wrote poetry, and I would doodle in the margins at school and get in trouble like a lot of us artsy people used to do. And yeah, it was just a real fun time, a sanctuary for me, something that I always went back to and just loved. So yeah, it's been definitely a thread through my whole life.
Because we often think like our artistic journey starts when there's something big that happens, or like we take a course or get published somewhere, but really it's from the beginning, right? So how do you see your artistic style evolve a lot? Does it change? What mediums is your art practice based around as well? Does that change a lot?
Yep. So I would say I'm mixed media. I love acrylic paint. I love art journals. I do paint on canvases as well. So I kind of like all the supplies. I very much love color and texture. That is the thing. Lots and lots of texture and organic shapes, and very well, like wonky. That's what I say, like really spontaneous and free. I would say, looking back, I think I've always loved color. I've always loved color. And, but my art style, when I first started, let's say with the mixed media classes 8 years ago, the online classes, I very much copied the teacher. Like I would start and stop the videos every 30 seconds, and I copied them exactly. And I felt like that was such a great approach for me, because I really learned right alongside with them. And even though I had been creative, even as a child, this was still like new territory for me. I still felt like a new artist in a way. I had always been, let's say, a creative, but it was so much more artsy and developed, what I was learning, I guess you could say, without any pressure. But so I really copied everyone to the letter. And I thought that was really, really good for me. I feel like I hear a lot of times people wanting to, riff off of things or go off on their own. And I think that's perfectly fine too. But for me at that time, following it exactly was so good for me in my learning. And then over time, I started being able to take those bits and pieces from all those different teachers and all those different lessons and begin slowly to, I guess, find my own style, do my own thing. And so I can see it evolve, and I can, looking back on my old artwork, I can definitely see that love of color and texture. But a lot of it really, when I was doing my own thing, not copying the teacher, was just a hot mess. It really, I was trying. You can see it. You can see the push for where it is now. But there was a learning curve there, no doubt.
And so would you say that helped you discover your artistic voice? What's your take on artistic voice? What do you think about this?
Well, I think, I think I've said this before. I have a little bit of a counter approach around artistic voice because
controversial. Hold on.
I am a little controversial, but I'll tell you why. It's the empath in me, really, because I see so many people in our community feel so bogged down. And by this quest for artistic voice, I feel like sometimes it can be counterproductive because it holds us back. We feel this huge pressure to develop this really unique style and voice. And I think sometimes it can hold us back from the love of it, the journey of it. I think, does it matter? Does it matter if we have an artistic voice? Maybe if we're a professional artist, if we're in a certain type of space or time in our life, maybe it matters. But in general, does it matter? I think back to when I was a little girl, sitting on my floor with my Pentel markers, and I sure did not know what an artistic voice was. And it sure wouldn't have mattered, right? But if someone would have told me, what's your artistic voice? Or even as a teenager, when maybe I could conceive of it, right? I could imagine feeling turned away, turned off, and having angst and feeling flooded over that. And I think creativity can be too soothing, too fun, too enjoyable to necessarily worry about artistic voice. And so I think that, but I also, this is kind of a little contradiction here. I think your artistic voice kind of lives within you too. Like you almost can't deny it over time with learning, practice, learning, practice, learning, practice. It will come out just like the tone of your voice, just like your natural temperament. I think it lives in you and will come out as you move along without pressure.
To move along.
Yeah, as you move along.
You have to move along. I think I agree with what you say, that there's no need for pressure. And I think the pressure partially can come from the culture of social media, because having a strong style and very consistent look on whatever it is, Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, is what gets you the clicks and likes and follows. And many can fall into that trap. And if you suddenly change something, then you can lose the following because it's no longer, same. So I can understand that, that's where it can partially come from, I think. But I absolutely agree that just enjoy the journey. And this happens organically. You just got to show up, right?
Yes.
Honor creativity, because we have to honor it, because we have it. Let's not deny ourselves the beauty of enjoying a creative process. And then the artistic voice, it's there, it's going to come out, and it's going to be beautiful, and it's going to be true and honest rather than
yeah, it's true. And as you learn and go along, you'll discover things you love, things you don't love, things you're naturally good at, things you're not naturally good at, and you can begin to kind of meander. And like, I hate to say hone that in, because I think if the margins go too narrow, then that can feel really constricting. You know, we
Mhm.
should try things we're not good at. We should try things that we don't necessarily love as well. But like, you know, things begin to fall away, and things begin, the things you don't love begin to just naturally fall away, and the things you love begin to naturally show up. And so, yeah, it's a process.
And I love that approach. You say that copying really helped you learn, because I think that's also important for people who are that, beginning stage. And it's important that I say this to everyone watching who's considering Wanderlust or who wants to take Wanderlust, that we absolutely encourage both approaches. So you can copy your teacher's projects, step by step, and end up with almost exactly the same result, because you will learn the fastest this way. Or if you feel more confident, you can include some of your own bits and your own personal marks. So both are good. It just depends on the circumstance and the approach. So what role does art journaling play in your life right now? Is it a daily practice? Is it a regular practice? What's going on?
Yep. I would not say it is not a daily practice. There's very little I do every day. I wrote a really cheeky, funny little post about I just want to brush my teeth every day and eat chocolate. That's about it. Every single day. But it's definitely a big part of my life. So I'm coming back to it all the time, pulling out the journal. I have several that I work in, different sizes, shapes. And I love them. I love them. Like I have a little, relationship with them. Yeah, they're my place of learning, and there's beautiful things mixed in with awful things, mixed in with practice, mixed in with, they're just a wild living thing. And so, yeah, it's probably the biggest part of my creative practice. It's definitely the biggest part, art journaling.
Or
Yeah.
journal. So
Yeah.
what other things do you do? What other things do you love?
As far as art?
Yes.
Yes. Well, like I said, I paint on canvases some. I don't do that quite as much, but I paint on canvases. I do a little bit of like memory keeping with photos and, some supplies and things like that. Not as much, but some of that. I like to write. So, yeah.
Yeah. I think memory keeping, is it a little bit, you're thinking like scrapbooking or Project Life, that
Yeah.
kind? Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that can be a great starting point for many people. And that natural progression often would be, try and mix media, because I know many of our students on Wanderlust started out with scrapbooking or memory keeping or decorating their memories in some way or another. So art journals could be used in that way as well, right? Do you sometimes include
Yes.
photos in your art journals?
I do. Yep. Photos, words, memories, sentiments. Yeah, I use some of the memory keeping supplies in my art journals for sure. Yeah, I kind of like that merge.
So you're not only an artist, but also a teacher and instructor. And I know you like your students to feel calm and relaxed, and like this is a safe space for them to express and learn. So how do you create that environment where people can kind of tap into their creativity without feeling overwhelmed?
Well, I think my natural temperament is to be very encouraging, warm, and inviting. That's just a part of who I am. And so I really try to set that feeling in my class. I really try to reach through that camera and make them feel like they're sitting right across from me at my table. I use two cameras so they can see my face and the artwork, and we kind of go back and forth. I always feel, when I watch classes, I always feel so sad when the teacher goes away. I'm like, wait. So I wanted to stay with them. And so I try to stay engaged and encourage them and speak, right to them. And also I am very free and open with art. And it's funny because I'm not necessarily free and open with everything in my life.
Okay, let's talk about that then.
Yeah, right. Well, yeah, let's. But for some reason in art and with creativity, I'm really able to hold that, like I talk about kind of like mother bearing it. Like it would be really easy to become a perfectionist, to not feel good enough, all of those. And I just really hold that space tight. Like there are other places in my life that's not as easy for me to hold that tight, but I can with art. And so I think when students watch me, just throwing stuff down, trying things out, making things very imperfectly, I think it gives them permission to do the same.
Yeah, and that's beautiful. And that I want to just mention here that that's one of the way you create your lessons, and how inviting, encouraging, and loving, because that's the right word here. That's one of the reasons why we always love you on Wanderlust, and we always want to have you as part of our team of teachers. So can you tell us a little bit about what we can expect from your lesson on Wanderlust 24? Is it going to be a lesson, or do we have a beautiful video from you? What's it?
It'll probably be a little bit of both. It's about being cozy in the studio.
Oh,
So
art
something
studio.
I love. Yes, we're going to set up the space. We're going to set the environment. We're going to pull in all those things that sort of create that environment of creativity, whether it's things from nature, a cup of coffee or some tea. We're going to talk about, sort of nurturing our spirits, nurturing our creative practice, and how do we set up the studio and set up our spaces, and what does it mean to create a cozy space that makes us feel warm and safe and nurtured, and invited, into our own space and our own art journal.
So what if someone watching that video doesn't have a creative studio and they only have quarter of a desk and a home?
Oh, yes.
Can they?
No, I get that. I get that. I started at my dining room table, right in the middle of the dining room, with my IKEA rolly cart with just a couple of supplies. That's all I had.
Oh, that cart is a legend.
There's the cart right there. I mean, everyone knows what it is. Everyone wants one, has seen it before. But even in my house, like right now, I'm in the front of my house in my dining room. All my kids are living at home with me, and so we don't have an extra space. So I'm just right here in the dining room. But before I was here, upstairs, I have a very weird little nook that like looks out over the staircase this direction, looks out up over the dining room in this direction, and it's not meant for anything. Like it really is big enough. It's a little deep, but it's only really wide enough for like a bookcase, if that. I don't even know what it's supposed to be, but I had my husband build me a desk, and I'm almost like sitting in the hallway. Like I have to scoot up so people can get around, but I needed a space. And so I understand not
that worked as well.
Dedicated space. What's that?
And that worked as well for you.
I loved it. I loved my little perch. Absolutely. I have so many good creative memories. So all you need, I mean, heck, sometimes I even work on the floor. Like if you don't even have a table space, I love to spread out and work on the floor sometimes. So all you need is just a little bit beyond your own personal space, your own personal body, just a few feet. And you can set up something that feels really welcoming for yourself.
When you have a space like that, that's in the middle of the house and that's kind of multifunctional, you often have to kind of put up with people being around as well.
I do. I do
about that, because I personally prefer when there's no one around, when I do my stuff, and then I can focus and be just, put my candle on and not be apologetic about the smell and everything.
Right.
So how do you feel about it?
Well, it's not my favorite to be so public, and especially where I'm at right now, it's really public. So it's not my favorite, but it's what I have. And I resisted it for a long time coming out into this dining room, because it is the most public space I've ever had. And so I resisted it, but I really, I teach classes and it's my job. And so I really have to have something. And I have found that I've liked it more than I thought that I would. I've had to talk to my family about certain things, like, like right now, I'm talking to you and everybody knows. Total silence in the house. Get yourself prepared. Get your breakfast and go upstairs. But we kind of work together. We know we need to, help each other, respect each other. My kids are older, so I don't have little ones running around. But yeah, sometimes it feels a little awkward making art with people, but they're gone during the day. There are moments where it's just me in this space, and it's filled with light, and I have lots of room and lots of drawers. So there's trade-offs too.
Nice. But I think that what you mentioned is important to have this conversation with your family rather than expect without communicating, right? And get frustrated that maybe they don't respect your space or your time as much as you'd like. Yeah.
Yeah, we've had a few conversations. We probably will will continue. A few reminders. We all live here. I do too. Yes.
So you mentioned about, how important it is for you to hold the space that's free of judgment and what's the word? Perfectionism, right? In art, in your classroom. But as we all, I can imagine you also have moments when you kind of have a creative block. Does that happen to you, or are you a non-human?
Well, I am not a non-human. Yes, I would say sometimes I have creative blocks.
Mhm.
I'm just really gentle on myself, and I have learned about my rhythms, and I try to respect those rhythms. So there are times where I feel more creative. There are times where I feel more burnout. There's times where I'm really busy, distracted, just can't get to it.
Mhm.
So I know that my creativity is here for the rest of my life. So if it doesn't happen today, tomorrow, this week, next year, I don't know. Like when I took that, I guess, a 20-year hiatus from making art, I was still creative. You know what happened? Like it came right back to me. Like it was
Mhm.
just there waiting, you know, like a friend. That's what I like to say. And it feels like a friend. Like it's not in the corner with its arms crossed, tapping its foot, going, "Where are you? Why didn't you come up?" You know,
Mhm.
I feel like it's just this really faithful, kind cheerleader sitting over my shoulder. Just whenever I show up, it says, "Hello, let's go." So I have a very warm, nurturing relationship, I would say, with my creativity. I could see how if I don't kind of safeguard that in my mind, how that could really it could turn into something else.
Mhm.
So I'm sort of careful with that.
Mhm.
But I just view it as this very, if it were a person, it's just this very friendly, warm, on my side,
Mhm.
available to me entity.
Yeah.
So it really alleviates a lot of that pressure. There was a time where I was really sick for 6 months and I didn't do anything. And, you just sit right back down to the art table and there it is. It just
Mhm.
meets you where you are.
Right. And I have to say that I have a very similar approach right now to yours. There was a time when I would put a lot of pressure on myself and feel bad every time when I wouldn't, be, I don't know, wouldn't paint for a longer period of time. But I think it came to understand that it just happens sometimes. And I know the more I do, the more inspired, obviously, I feel. But sometimes there are periods of time and moments when I just don't feel like this is the thing I want to be doing now. And then I might do some cooking.
Right.
And that's why
Definitely.
I think that's really important as well for everyone who's, thinking about joining Wanderlust to understand that even though the lessons on Wanderlust are weekly, so it's intense, it doesn't mean you have to approach it in that way. You have to watch them every week. You can dip in, dip out. You'll have lifetime access, and there is absolutely no pressure from us for you to be, always on top of all of your lessons. Though we do provide ways and ideas and tips how you can get back into the creative practice should you ever drop out. Okay, Shay, thank you so much for this. It was lovely to chat to you and to finally meet you in person, kind of in
Same
person.
here.
Lots
Yeah,
of
I loved it.
great thoughts and tips, I think, for our adventures. Let us know, people, in the comments section, what was your favorite bit from this interview, from this chat. We would love to find out. And if you're excited about Shay's lesson on Wanderlust, but also Shay's video on Wanderlust Live, which is, let me just have a quick look, on Sunday. Yes, it's Sunset Beaches and Artsy Live at 10 p.m. UK time. So yeah, that's gonna be good.
It's very fun.
Thank you very much and see you around.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Good luck to everybody. Have a great year.